Today's question is, can you buy a higher selling limit on eBay? We're going to dive into that and answer that question for you right now. What's up, fellow dropshippers? Paul here from dropshippingtitans.com. And in this video, we're talking all about selling limits and insertion fees and how they relate to each other, because I get this question all the time. Paul, how can I buy higher selling limits? The question is, can you do it? So there's two things we're talking about here, and they are completely separate things. The first thing are your selling limits. So here I am on eBay on my seller dashboard inside my seller hub, I should say. And this box right here tells me what my limits are for this account. It tells me that my limits are 100 items or $5,000, whichever one comes first. So if I list up for sale 100 items that cost $3 each, I can do that. But I can't list any more than that because I've just listed 100 items. Or if I list one item that costs $5,000, I've also hit my selling limit. We're going to come back to that and talk more about selling limits in a minute because it is a little bit confusing, but that's all you need to know for now, that your selling limits are based on your account. They're tied to your account based on how long you've been selling and how many products you've sold. Now, as time goes on, eBay will raise your selling limits. So let's say, we'll use an example, you start out with a selling limit of 25 items, we'll say. Well, eventually eBay will raise that once they see that you've sold items and have a good selling history. Now, completely separate from that is this thing that eBay calls zero insertion fee listings. It's a terrible name, but that's what they call it. Basically, what they tell you is that every single month, you as a seller can list onto eBay 50 different listings for free. Normally, eBay charges you every time you create a listing on eBay, but they give you 50 of those listings absolutely free. You, of course, have to pay final value fees once the item sells, but as for actually creating listing itself, they'll give you 50 of them. Now, in our example, we said that you have a store that has a selling limit of 25 items. Now, if you have a selling limit of 25 items, but you always get 50 free listings, does that mean that you can list 50 items? No, you can't, because your selling limit is 25. So even though eBay gives you 50 for free, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to use all of them. So if we follow that train of thought and we come over to this page, this is where eBay allows you to pay a subscription to them for a store subscription, and the store subscriptions come with some benefits. So let's take a step back from that for a second. When you first start selling on eBay, you're going to have a free account. And with that free account, you get the 50 free listings, the zero insertion fee listings. Now, if you sign up for one of these store subscriptions, you get more free listings. So the starter plan, for instance, is $5 a month to start, and you get 100 free listings. Anything over that, you pay 30 cents per listing. The basic store starts at $22 a month, and you get 250 free listings. And after that, each listing is 25 cents per month. So if you do the math, you can kind of work out at what point it makes sense for you to upgrade to one of these store subscriptions. And for any students inside my course, I do have a lesson actually breaking down for you at what point it makes sense to level up to each of these different store subscriptions. But the point I'm trying to make for this video is that you cannot sign up for a basic store subscription, let's say, and expect to be able to list 250 items right when you start selling on eBay. Because again, what you're going to get hit with are your selling limits. Your selling limits are here. Signing up for a store subscription does not raise your selling limits. It just raises the number of free listings that you're capable of having, but you're not even going to be able to use those because you're still stuck at a lower selling limit. So the question is, how do you increase your selling limits? Well, unfortunately, you cannot buy higher selling limits. You can't pay eBay to raise that selling limit. So what you have to do is you have to list up a bunch of items for sale, max out your selling limit, make some sales, and at the end of the month, contact eBay, and then they'll raise it for you. If you keep doing that every single month, they'll keep raising your limit higher and higher. Now, I want to dive into selling limits a little bit more because there's a lot of confusion about how they work. But if you're enjoying this video so far, if I've answered the question for you, then I would appreciate a thumbs up on the video. So selling limits on eBay can be kind of confusing. So to help make this a little bit easier to understand, we're going to use some props, some blocks. So let's say you have a selling limit of 10 items. Each of those quantity of limits is represented by another block. Now remember, we're talking about selling limits here. You cannot pay to raise selling limits. That's the one we're talking about. We're not talking about insertion fees right now. So here you have 1, 2, 3, 4 yellow ones. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green ones, and 1 blue one. So think of it like every month you have a bucket full of your selling limit. Here it is right here. Now, you start out with no items listed for sale. This is all the items listed for sale, and a bucket full of 10. So what do? Well, you create a listing, right? So let's say you create a listing on eBay for the yellow block, and you make a quantity of 2. You've just taken 2 out of the bucket, and there they are. Then you create another listing, and it's for a blue block. Here it is. You took the blue one out of the bucket. And then let's say you create a listing for a green block and you only use 1, a quantity of 1. Now, what happens next? Well, let's say someone buys a yellow block from you, just 1. So they buy 1 from you. There it is over there. And you still have 1 left right there. What can you do now? Well, you still have plenty left in the bucket. So you could raise the yellow quantity up by 1. There you go. Or maybe you also want to raise the green one up by, let's say, 2. All of that's fine. You're allowed to do that. Then what happens? Well, then you sell another yellow one. And maybe you sell a green one. Great. What do now? Well, you still have stuff left in the bucket. So you raise the yellow by 1. And you raise the green by a quantity of 2. You didn't create new listings here. You just raised the quantity on the existing listings. Then what happens? Well, then you sell the blue one, right? And then you sell the green one. And let's say you sell everything. Well, what do now? Well, now you can't do anything else because the bucket's empty. Even though an item sells, it doesn't go back into the bucket. Once it's out of the bucket, that's it. You're not allowed to list up anything more than that. So let's look at this another way. Let's say we start out the month again. It's a new month now. So whenever you start a new month, you get all your blocks back in the bucket. You get a full bucket again. So now you list up for sale some green blocks, let's say a quantity of 2. And you have a listing for yellow blocks, that's a quantity of 2. And 1 blue, right there. Okay? Then let's say you sell 2 yellows. So that brings the quantity of that listing down to 0. So you bring the quantity back up to 2. Your selling limit is comprised of what you've already sold over here, plus what you have listed for sale. Here. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 in total. So you can only list or sell 3 more items because 10 minus 7 is 3. So in this case, we might list up for sale 1 more green one, and then we might sell the blue, sell both the yellows, and then sell 2 greens. And then we can list up for sale, raise the quantity of the green by another 2. And then that's it, because the bucket is now empty. So now let's relate this to how it works with our insertion fees to make this a little bit more confusing. All right, so we have in this bucket again 10 blocks. That is our selling limit. Once all the blocks come out, that's it, we're done. So I create one listing that has 4 yellow blocks, quantity of 4. And I create another listing that has 5 green blocks. And I create a third listing that has 1 blue block. So this has a quantity of 4, this has a quantity of 5, this has a quantity of 1. We've just hit our selling limit because all that added up is 10, which was our selling limit, and there's nothing left in the bucket. But in terms of insertion fees, what happened? Remember, as a new store, you get 50 free insertions per month. We have 1, 2, 3 different listings. So now we can create 47 more listings for free. Now, of course, we know we can't do that because our selling limit's only 10. But if our selling limit was higher, we could actually create 47 more listings for free. So what I'm trying to show you here is that each listing here, which is 3, doesn't matter what the quantity is, it still only counts as 1 listing for purposes of the insertion fees. But for purposes of our selling limits, each quantity counts as 1. 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 5 is 10 for purposes of the selling limits. Whew. So I hope that makes sense. I know it can be really confusing when looking at both your selling limits and the number of insertion fees that you have. But I hope you're able to see that they are 2 completely different things. Do not even try to compare them at all because they are completely different. So just to quickly recap what they are, your selling limits are how many items you are allowed to list and sell per month. And each quantity counts towards that limit. If you hit either the number or dollar amount first, then you are capped out for the month and you can't sell or list up any more items. Your insertion fees are completely separate, and your insertion fees are determined by what store subscription you have. So you can buy more 0 insertion fee listings. You start out with 50, you can move up to 100, 250, 1,000, or even 10,000, all the way up to 100,000 if you pay for it. But as far as selling limits go, no, you cannot buy a higher selling limit. What you need to do is list up items for sale, sell those items, and then every single month you can request to list more. You can request an increase in your selling limit, and then eBay can grant that to you. So if this clarified things for you, then let me know in the comment section and give this video a big thumbs up. If this only made you more confused, also let me know that in the comment section, and maybe I'll try to make another video that clarifies it even more. But if you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate if you subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much, guys. See you in the next video. Hey, thanks so much for watching the video. If you want to subscribe to the channel, you can do that by clicking right here. And then I have 2 videos for you to check out. Click on one of those, and I'll see you over in that video in just a few seconds.